Well, welcome again here to Maundy Thursday services here at Lord of Grace. It's another one of those small night services that I love so much. And I never quite get stampeded with crowds the way I wish, but it's good to see all of you here tonight. It is, and of course I love it. Part of why I love it is because it's the mystery of communion, of the breaking of the bread and the drinking of the wine. And yes, it is the drinking of the wine. Jesus did drink wine. I tell this to my temperance ancestors. He didn't metaphorically mean wine. You have to get grapes, to squish grapes and not have them turn to wine, you have to run them through a special process. Grape juice isn't natural. But all right, I'll get off my high horse on that. There's something about communion that is very powerful, but I've never been able to explain exactly what that is and explain exactly why it is so powerful. I think a lot of moving experiences are like that. You kind of, where they say, you had to be there. But if you're there, you know. And of course, what makes it so powerful is communion is not just a ritual of remembrance. It definitely is that. I mean, that's part of it. Jesus did say, do this in remembrance of me. But he also said, this is my body and this is my blood. He didn't say, this symbolically represents my body and blood, or think of this imaginatively as if it were my body and blood when you are eating and drinking. He said, this is my body and my blood, as often as you drink it. Which is why we Lutherans call it the real presence. It's not consubstantiation. When I was taking classes at the Catholic University, the priest kept saying, you teach consubstantiation. And I'm like, no, that was a word invented later to try to counter transubstantiation. But that's getting into splitting theological hairs that would put all of you to sleep tonight. But we just call it the real presence. He's really present. And not just somewhere around, in the bread, in the wine. Exactly how that happens, well, that's part of the mystery of it. You know, and like a lot of mysteries, it makes a lot more sense when you delve yourself into it and get into it and dive into it and not try to overanalyze it. None of Jesus' disciples, as far as we know, ever stopped to ask him, now, Jesus, what do you mean by this becomes your body and your blood? How exactly does that work, Jesus? It still looks like wine to me, and it has earthy undertones. They just took it, and they ate it, and they drank it, and they ran with it. The real presence. Christ is really present. You could fill this room with books, people trying to explain it, but maybe it's not as important to explain it as to experience it. We're really participating with Jesus here tonight. Participating with him, really eating and drinking with him. Because one of the biggest dangers of faith, I think, and maybe this is a really modern trend, although maybe it's not, is the tendency to want to make everything in faith abstract, ethereal, conceptual, to make it not about physical things and physical bodies, to take essentially everything about God out of our physical world and put it either in your brain or up in the ether. So, and of course I get the appeal of that because intangible things are hard to disprove. And they don't test your scientific understanding of how molecules and atoms and all these kind of things work. It doesn't require you to embrace the possibility of miracles or God operating in ways in our world that we don't understand It saves you from the accusation of being supernatural. If it's all in your head and it's a communication between the interior of the individual and the interior of the divine, then there's no way to prove it or disprove it, but at least they aren't laughing at me. Now, I do support that kind of spirituality. If you've listened to my sermons, I've given sermons about the interior of the individual and its connection with the divine. I'm all for that. I try to cultivate it at Lent services where we sit around and journal and meditate. I'm all for that. I'm just not just that, because that's only part of the story. Jesus didn't say, when you eat and drink together, think of me and achieve higher levels of Christ consciousness and awareness of the divinity in your being. He could have, and there are words in our language for that. I saw a meme online, that basically took every piece of the Bible story and said, well, what if salvation was really Christ consciousness? What if, justification was awareness? And they had all these sort of very, Eastern, kind of words attached to it. And I read that meme and I thought, this meme was definitely written by Sri Jace of the Happy Lovejoy Higher Consciousness Magnetic Resonance School of Sedona. And he wears a white robe and goes barefoot and always gives lots of extra advice to the attractive women. It was amazing how popular this meme was. Moving Jesus completely out of the real world and sort of stuffing him up in their heads and into the world of spirit and consciousness, which is a word that doesn't exist in the Bible. I mean, it's been done before, thousands of years ago, because people have always struggled with the physicality of it, with what it means to engage God with our whole selves and our whole bodies. But as someone who doesn't believe that bodies are inherently sinful, I think we should maybe see our bodies as things that can be divine too, or part of our connection and communion, our communion with God. We need not fear the body in our religion. It's part of what makes Jesus Jesus, that he was a person with cells and molecules and everything that comes with it. He wasn't just a walking spirit, although people have argued that too. He's physical. He didn't leave us when he was resurrected, and his presence is not limited to hearts and minds, but it includes a presence that is physical, that's something that you can actually digest inside yourself. And yeah, that sounds both kind of gross and nonsensical when you first say it. But that's what happened at the Last Supper. Jesus told his disciples he was leaving them, that he was always be with them, that they should remember him every dinner, and that this food is his body and blood. Take and eat, he says. Take and eat. Jesus is really present. Amen.